The Dawning is back, which means all of the old weapons are back, and another chance for players to hunt the Gravioclasm. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over every single Dawning weapon and ranking them in a tier list. I'll also be going over each of the weapons' god rolls and what perks you'll want to be chasing before the Dawning goes away on January 2nd. So let's start with Coldfront. Coldfront is a kinetic aggressive frame SMG that in the past has performed so well in PvP and PvE activities. However, the Coldfront does not roll with target lock like the Immortal does, and the Coldfront can't run kill clip either, which really brings down the list for a strong PvP SMG. Although I'm sure most PvP players would agree that this isn't really a bad thing. Thankfully, Bungie haven't brought another powerful SMG into PvP. So for PvP, I can see most players taking the Immortal they already have instead of going to farm a Coldfront. For PvE, the same sort of problem applies. There are so many SMGs I would rather use than the Coldfront, such as the Funnel Web or the Callus mini tool, since both of those are elemental weapons that can be combined with subclass keywords. Let's take a look at the roles you're going to want to pick up on the Coldfront should you want it. So for PvE, you've actually got a fair few choices here. In column 3, you can pick up perks like Unrelenting, Subsistence, and Stats for All, or even Perpetual Motion if you just want to boost your reload speed. Then in column 4, you're able to roll Rampage, One for All, or Frenzy, which gives you a pretty decent selection of damage perks. Now, if you're a PvP player, your choices are much more limited, which is why I would suggest something like the Immortal. But you can roll Tap the Trigger in column 3 and Rangefinder in column 4, but that's really all you got. So because of the meh perk pool and the other Dawning weapons simply being better than Coldfront, it'll get slotted in the B tier. Don't get me wrong, it's still a pretty solid weapon, just not compared to the other Dawning weapons. The next weapon we have on the list is a Dawning favorite, the Gravioclasm. The high impact Void Fusion Rifle is back, and it's just as strong as it was last year. Fusion rifles are in a good place with perks like Controlled Burst, but the Gravioclasm's one weakness is its charge time, sitting quite high at 960. But Controlled Burst can lower this to 864. Still high, but manageable, especially considering you're getting the 20% buff from Controlled Burst. This year's Gravioclasm is a fantastic fusion for both PvE and PvP, and its slow charge time shouldn't be too much of an issue, if you're ready for the enemy before they come around the corner, of course. So let's take a look at the roles you're going to want. For PvE, you'll want to pick up Overflow in column 3, nothing really matches Overflow here, and in column 4, you'll want to grab either Reservoir Burst, which will pair perfectly with Overflow, letting you deal AoE all around, or Controlled Burst, which is better for a boss DPS scenario. If you're in PvP, then column 3, I would roll with Slide Shot, and in column 4, you can pick up High Impact, Eye of the Storm, or Successful Warm-Up. You will need to get a kill to be able to proc it, but it will drop the charge time by 37.5%, giving you a pretty solid fire rate considering how much damage the thing deals. Now, where does it rank on the tier list? No surprise, the Gravioclasm is one of my must farms for the Dawning event, and it's going in the S tier spot. Coming up next, we have the Stasis Sword Zephyr. Zephyr is an adaptive frame sword, so it does have the standard uppercut heavy attack, but it can deal some pretty solid damage. But swords aren't really in the meta game at the moment, so it is hard to gauge its full potential. In the past, Stasis swords with the unique perk Cold Steel have helped them because they are incredibly powerful thanks to the shatter damage adding on top of the sword strikes. So taking a look at the possible roles on Zephyr, I personally wouldn't use a sword in PvP, so I'm just going to go over the PvE perks for this one. In column 3, you've got Duelist Trance, which final blows increase the charge rate and defense until you stow it. You could also pick up Tireless Blade to get sword ammo on every other powered sword kill, or even Relentless Strikes to gain ammo after hitting 3 light attacks. In column 4, you've got Cold Steel, Surrounded, or Whirlwind Blade. All of these will help increase your DPS. I personally would lean towards Cold Steel. So overall, I wouldn't say the Zephyr is a must get, but is pretty strong sword if you haven't got a God Roll Fallen Guillotine. So I'm gonna rank Zephyr in the A tier. It's not a must-have Dawning weapon, but it's still a pretty solid one. Coming up next, we have Stay Frosty, which I believe is the only lightweight frame stasis pulse rifle currently in the game. Stay Frosty is a great pulse that can roll with some decent perks, and pulse rifles are in a fairly strong position in the game at the moment since they received the slight buff. Stay Frosty can roll with some solid perks both for PvE and PvP, which is exactly what you like to see. If we're looking for a PvE weapon, I would pick up Enlightened Action in column 3 to gain bonuses to reload and handling when you deal damage, and Desperado in column 4 4, which will increase your rate of fire after a precision blow. Also in column 4 is Headstone if you're looking for a more traditional stasis weapon to create crystals. If you're looking for a PvP pulse rifle, you are pretty spoiled for choice here as well. Column 3 has Moving Target, Killing Wind, or even Encore, and in column 4 you could pick up Kill Clip or Headseeker or even Desperado. All of those will lower the time to kill. Again, I wouldn't say this is a must grab, but if you are looking for a solid pulse rifle, it's a great pickup, and I'm going to rank it an A tier right next to the Zephyr. Next we have the solar heavy LMG, the Avalanche. The adaptive frame LMG is a fantastic LMG for ad clear that can still hold its own during DPS phases. However, for DPS it is hard to go past the retrofit Escapade, but that's no longer available unless Banshee sells it. The Avalanche is a great solar LMG to slot, especially since solar LMGs are not very easy to find throughout the game. I have tried a few times. The Avalanche has a fairly solid perk pool. Again, since this is a heavy weapon, I'm going to be focusing mainly on the PvE aspect, and that's where you'll get the most use out of it. In column 3, you've got perks like Rewind Rounds and Subsistence, and in column 4, you've got Incandescent, which is expected, it's a solar weapon, but you've also got damage perks like Target Lock, All for One, and Adrenaline Junkie. An interesting pairing here is Target Lock and Rewind Rounds. In the DPS phase, you'll be able to fire for a pretty long time. So because of Avalanche's overall great stats and perk combinations, the Avalanche has to go in the S tier. If you're time limited this dawning, make sure you make an effort to grab a solid roll on the Avalanche before January 2nd. Now finally we have the Albo Wing. Now glaives aren't the best in PvE or PvP. It can be usable in PvE, but in PvP, if you take a glaive in, you should know what to expect. It's a glaive. So your choice on getting this weapon is personal preference. However, it does have one interesting perk combination that I'm going to mention, and I don't believe any other glaive in the game can actually have it. That perk combination is Grave Robber in column 3, which will reload the mag when you get a melee kill, and then Demolitionist in column 4, which means you can essentially completely bypass reloading the glaive, letting you keep firing and keeping your shield up as long as possible. At the end of the day, I don't personally like glaives, and I don't have a lot to say about them, so I can't rank this higher than a B, but if I had to use one glaive, I would probably pick this one as it is one of the better ones. And that's all for this video. Let me know what god rolls you're looking for. If you did enjoy, consider dropping a like or even a cheeky sub, and until next time, I'll see you on stream.